Hello there, and welcome to the Healing Insight channel. Tonight, we are going somewhere deeply quiet. Somewhere beneath the surface of the ordinary world, beneath the hum of daily thought and the restless chatter of the waking mind, down into a place where some of the most extraordinary and patient wisdom in all of nature has been waiting. Waiting, as it turns out, is the very subject we will explore together this evening, and there is no better place to begin than here, in this soft and unhurried moment, where you have already taken the first step simply by arriving and choosing to be still. Right now, deep beneath the soil, billions of seeds are practicing a form of patience that your mind desperately needs to remember. Dormancy isn't a lack of progress. It is a vital, protective silence that mirrors your own need for restorative rest. Tonight, let the resilience of nature teach your subconscious how to thrive in the stillness. What if the secret to your mental clarity wasn't found in constant effort, but in the science of physiological latency? Just as a seed waits for the perfect moment to break its shell, your brain requires periods of deep, inactive renewal to foster true psychological growth. Close your eyes and sync your breath with the quiet rhythm of the Earth's most patient survivors. In a world that demands constant movement, there is a profound psychological peace found in the art of doing nothing at all. Seed dormancy proves that some of the most intense, life-giving work happens in total darkness and absolute quiet. Let this exploration of biological rest guide you into a meditative sleep where your resilience is quietly rebuilt. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. Let your body soften, allow your eyes to grow heavy, and let your mind unwind as we explore this fascinating world. Let's begin. There is a particular kind of stillness that exists beneath the ground in the deep and muffled quiet of the soil, where light cannot reach and sound arrives only as a faint and distant tremor. It is in this darkness, in this held and patient silence, that one of nature's most extraordinary performances unfolds. A seed rests there. It may have been resting for days, or for months, or in some remarkable cases for thousands of years, and yet it is not empty. It is not absent. It is not wasting time. The seed in its dormancy is doing something that the human mind, in all its busy and striving effort, so rarely allows itself to do. It is holding still on purpose. It is waiting with intention. It is storing everything it will ever need for the moment that is not yet here, but is, without any doubt, coming. Understanding dormancy as an active biological choice rather than a state of emptiness is perhaps one of the most quietly revolutionary ideas that plant science has ever offered us. And it is an idea that arrives not with fanfare or urgency, but with the same soft and gradual certainty with which morning light eventually touches the horizon. Scientists who study seed biology describe dormancy not as a pause in life, but as a distinct and purposeful phase of life. The seed is not stopped. It is not broken. It is not failed or forgotten. It has made, at the level of its most fundamental chemistry, a decision to wait. And that decision is encoded in its very structure, written into the proteins and hormones and cellular membranes that make up its entire being. The seed knows, in the language of biology, that the moment is not right. And so it waits. And in the waiting, it preserves itself perfectly for what is to come. Consider how different this is from the way we so often think about stillness in our own lives. We have been taught, many of us, from the very beginning of our conscious awareness, that stillness is a kind of failure. That resting is a sign of weakness. That the quiet moments are the lost moments, the wasted hours, the time we will never get back. We carry this belief like a stone in our chest, and it sits there heavily even when we are exhausted, even when every part of us is asking for rest, even when our bodies are doing exactly what the seed does and insisting, in their own quiet way, that the moment for action has not yet arrived. But the seed does not feel ashamed of its dormancy. The seed does not apologize for resting. The seed simply waits with complete confidence because it understands at the deepest biological level that rest is not the opposite of growth. Rest is the preparation for it. What makes this so deeply fascinating is that dormancy is not a single state, but an entire spectrum of biological conditions, each one finely calibrated to the specific needs of a specific seed in a specific environment. Some seeds enter what scientists call physiological dormancy, in which the internal chemistry of the seed itself prevents germination even when all the external conditions seem favorable. The seed could sprout. The temperature might be right. The moisture might be present. But something inside says, not yet. Something ancient and intelligent and chemical holds the door closed until the moment is truly, perfectly aligned. Other seeds have what is called morphological dormancy, in which the embryo inside the seed is simply not yet fully developed at the time the seed is released from its parent plant, and so it must continue its interior work in the soil before it is ready to reach outward. And there are seeds that require the slow chemical breakdown of their own outer coat before they can even begin to consider germination, a process that may take an entire season or more of patient exposure to the elements. The intriguing part is that none of this is random. None of it is accidental. Every layer of dormancy, every chemical lock on every cellular door, is a form of wisdom accumulated over millions of years of evolution. Seeds that germinated too soon, in a brief warm spell that was followed by a killing frost, did not survive. Seeds that waited, that held their energy in reserve until the warmth was real and sustained and true, did survive. And they passed that patience forward into every seed that came after them. What you are witnessing when you contemplate a dormant seed is not emptiness. You are witnessing the distilled intelligence of an almost incomprehensible span of time. You are looking at patience that has been tested and proven and refined across more generations than the human mind can comfortably hold. And perhaps, in this long and quiet moment, you can let that knowledge settle into you the way warmth settles into cold ground, slowly and thoroughly, and without any need for hurry. Now allow your attention to rest gently on something even more extraordinary. The seed does not wait blindly. It does not simply close itself off from the world and hope for the best. Inside that hard and quiet shell, a remarkably sophisticated process of environmental monitoring is taking place, one so precise and so elegant that scientists are still working to fully understand all of its dimensions. Seeds are, in a very real and measurable sense, listening to the world around them. They are detecting changes in temperature, in light, in moisture, in the chemical signals that drift through the soil. They are gathering information, and they are using that information to make what biology describes as the most consequential decision of their existence. How seeds monitor their environment with molecular precision is a story that begins at the very smallest scale of living chemistry. Within the seed's embryo, there are receptor molecules that respond to specific wavelengths of light. These molecules, known as phytochromes, can distinguish not just the presence of light, but its quality, the ratio of red to far red light that indicates whether the seed is buried under soil or leaf litter or positioned where sunlight will actually reach it. A seed buried too deep will sense the wrong ratio and understand, through this molecular conversation, that it is not yet in the right position to begin. It will wait. It will keep waiting until conditions shift. And when the ratio changes, when the signal comes that light is truly available and the depth is right, the phytochrome responds and a cascade of chemical events begins that slowly, gently begins to unlock the door to life. Temperature tells another story. Many seeds require a period of sustained cold before they can germinate, a process called stratification, in which the accumulated cold of winter slowly dismantles the chemical barriers that prevent premature sprouting. The seed must experience winter before it can believe in spring. It must be held in the cold long enough, consistently enough, that its chemistry recognizes the cold not as a threat, but as a message. And the message says that winter is real, that it has passed through the darkness. That warmth, when it comes, will be the warmth of a true and lasting season rather than a brief and dangerous thaw. This is a kind of wisdom that operates entirely below the level of conscious experience, entirely in the dark, entirely in silence, and yet it is as sophisticated and as meaningful as any decision you have ever made. Shifting your own perspective of sleep from a period of lost time to a necessary stage of internal fortification is perhaps the most quietly important thing you can do for your psychological well-being tonight. Sleep researchers speak of the brain's activity during rest with a kind of reverent precision, describing processes so complex and so essential that the waking mind cannot fully appreciate them precisely because it is the waking mind that is most likely to dismiss them. During sleep, the brain consolidates the memories of the day, moving them from temporary holding areas into deeper and more stable storage. It clears metabolic waste products that accumulate during waking activity. It restores the neurotransmitter levels that govern mood and attention and impulse control. It processes emotional experiences, running them through circuits that allow the emotional charge to gradually reduce while the memory itself is preserved. And it does all of this quietly, invisibly in the dark, while you are still. Temperature tells another story. Many seeds require a period of sustained cold before they can germinate, a process called stratification, in which the accumulated cold of winter slowly dismantles the chemical barriers that prevent premature sprouting. The seed must experience winter before it can believe in spring. It must be held in the cold long enough, consistently enough, that its chemistry recognizes the cold not as a threat, but as a message. And the message says that winter is real, that it has passed through the darkness. That warmth, when it comes, will be the warmth of a true and lasting season rather than a brief and dangerous thaw. This is a kind of wisdom that operates entirely below the level of conscious experience, entirely in the dark, entirely in silence, and yet it is as sophisticated and as meaningful as any decision you have ever made. Shifting your own perspective of sleep from a period of lost time to a necessary stage of internal fortification is perhaps the most quietly important thing you can do for your psychological well-being tonight. Sleep researchers speak of the brain's activity during rest with a kind of reverent precision, describing processes so complex and so essential that the waking mind cannot fully appreciate them precisely because it is the waking mind that is most likely to dismiss them. During sleep, the brain consolidates the memories of the day, moving them from temporary holding areas into deeper and more stable storage. It clears metabolic waste products that accumulate during waking activity. It restores the neurotransmitter levels that govern mood and attention and impulse control. It processes emotional experiences, running them through circuits that allow the emotional charge to gradually reduce while the memory itself is preserved. And it does all of this quietly, invisibly in the dark, while you are still. Just as the seed does not look busy from the outside, but is in fact engaged in the most essential biological work of its existence, so too does the sleeping brain present a surface of quietude, while beneath that surface, an extraordinary renovation is taking place. Every night, when you allow yourself to truly rest, you are giving your mind the same gift that winter gives the waiting seed. You are creating the conditions under which growth becomes not just possible, but inevitable. The seed that has passed through its full period of stratification does not hesitate when spring arrives. It is ready. It is chemically prepared, structurally primed, energetically sufficient for the great work of becoming. And the mind that has passed through a full and genuine night of sleep arrives at morning in exactly the same way, ready in ways that the tired and restless mind simply cannot be. So as you rest here in this moment, letting the weight of your body sink a little more deeply into the surface beneath you, let this idea accompany you into stillness. Your rest is not empty. Your rest is full. It is as full as the dormant seed, as purposeful as the winter cold, as intelligent as the phytochrome that waits for exactly the right quality of light. You are not behind. You are not wasting time. You are doing, right now in this very moment, exactly what the most resilient and patient organisms on this planet have always done. You are gathering yourself. You are holding your energy in reserve. You are waiting with the deep wisdom of life itself for the moment that is coming. The outer coat of a seed is one of nature's most quietly beautiful engineering achievements. It is called the tester, and from the outside, it can appear almost unremarkable. Small, perhaps. Brown, perhaps. Smooth or ridged or patterned in ways that seem decorative, but are in fact entirely functional. The seed coat exists for one purpose, and that purpose is protection. Not the aggressive protection of armor worn in battle, but the gentle and complete protection of a boundary that says not yet, not here, not until the conditions are truly right. The seed coat is patience made physical. It is discernment made into matter. It is a structure that understands, at the level of its molecular composition, that the most important thing a seed can do in a difficult environment is to remain intact until the moment of genuine readiness arrives. Analyzing the protective coat of a seed as a metaphor for the psychological boundaries we need for our own recovery is an exercise that opens up something quite profound about the nature of resilience. We live in a world that frequently asks us to be open, to be available, to respond and engage and produce and connect at all hours and in all conditions. And there is beauty in openness, certainly. There is richness in connection. But the seed knows something that the culture of constant availability tends to forget. It knows that without a boundary, without a coat, without a protected interior space where the essential work of preparation can unfold undisturbed, the tender embryo inside is simply too vulnerable to survive. A seed without its coat is not more accessible. It is simply exposed. And exposure without readiness is not openness. It is risk. The chemistry of this protective coat is worth dwelling upon because it reveals a subtlety that goes far beyond simple mechanical protection. The seed coat is not just a wall. It is a regulated membrane, one that controls what passes through it and in what quantities and at what times. Water must eventually enter the seed for germination to begin, but the coat carefully manages this process, allowing moisture to penetrate only when other conditions signal that the time is right. Gases must move in and out, and the coat regulates this too. Certain chemicals produced by the seed's own metabolism must be prevented from escaping too quickly, because their presence within the seed is part of what maintains dormancy. The coat is not just protection. It is a sophisticated system of selective permeability, a structure that knows the difference between what should be allowed in and what should be kept out. Now think about what this means for your own experience of recovery and rest. Psychological boundaries function in exactly this way when they are healthy and well established. They are not walls that prevent all contact. They are selective membranes. They allow what is nourishing and supportive to enter, while gently, firmly keeping out what would disrupt the essential interior work of healing and consolidation. A person who is recovering from exhaustion, from grief, from the accumulated strain of sustained effort, does not need to be closed to everything. They need to be selectively open, in the way that the seed coat is selectively permeable. To choose, consciously or instinctively, what to let in and what to hold at bay. To recognize that the protection of interior quiet is not selfishness. It is the precise and necessary condition for the return of genuine vitality. There is a word in developmental psychology, the concept of a holding environment, that describes the quality of safe and contained space that allows a person, particularly a developing child, to experience and process difficult emotions without being overwhelmed by them. The holding environment is not a wall. It is a context of sufficient safety and sufficient containment that the interior work of processing and growing can happen without the additional stress of environmental instability or emotional threat. The good parent, the good therapist, the good friend in a difficult moment creates a holding environment not by eliminating difficulty, but by providing the stable relational context within which difficulty can be metabolized. And the seed coat, in this framework, is one of nature's purest expressions of a holding environment. It holds the embryo. It holds the reserves. It holds the dormancy itself, maintaining the conditions of safe interiority through every kind of external pressure, until the moment when the embryo is ready to meet the world on its own terms. Your sleep tonight is a holding environment. The dark room, the bed beneath you, the quiet of the hour, the absence of demands, all of these constitute a containing context within which your own interior work, the work of restoration and repair and integration, can proceed without interruption. You are held. You are contained in exactly the way the seed is contained by its coat, with enough protection to do the interior work completely, and enough permeability to allow the morning's light, when it comes, to reach you and signal that the time for a new day has arrived. For now, the coat is doing its work. The holding environment is in place. There is nothing that needs to enter right now that the night is not already providing, and nothing that needs to escape that is not finding its own way toward release through the chemistry of sleep. The chemistry of abscisic acid offers perhaps the most intimate and tender parallel between the biology of seeds and the psychology of human rest. Abscisic acid, or ABA as plant scientists call it, is a hormone produced within the seed that actively promotes and maintains dormancy. It is, in the language of plant biology, a signal that says slow down. It says preserve. It says hold the resources, quiet the processes, maintain the boundary, wait. And it does this not through force, but through chemistry, by binding to specific receptor molecules within the seed cells and initiating a cascade of responses that gently, systematically, reduce the metabolic activity that would otherwise lead to premature germination. Abscisic acid is not a suppressor of life. It is a protector of life. It ensures that the seed's precious reserves are not spent before the conditions for growth are truly present. How abscisic acid mirrors the human brain's need to dial down external noise is a parallel worth exploring with some care and tenderness, because it touches on something that many people find genuinely difficult to give themselves permission for. The brain, during periods of genuine rest, and especially during deep sleep, undergoes changes in its neurochemical environment that are functionally analogous to what abscisic acid accomplishes in the seed. Activity in the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for planning and analysis, and the constant narration of conscious thought, decreases significantly. The default mode network, once thought to be simply the brain's idle state, is now understood to be engaged in its own form of essential maintenance, processing social information, consolidating emotional experience, generating the connections between ideas that we experience as insight when they surface during waking hours. The noise dials down. The signals simplify, and in that simplification, something important is preserved and restored. Many people resist this dialing down, even when they are exhausted, even when every biological system in their body is asking for it, because the culture of productivity has taught them to associate quietness with unproductiveness. The abscisic acid within the dormant seed would find this puzzling. From the perspective of the seed, the reduction of activity is not unproductiveness. It is the highest form of productivity available during this particular phase. It is the exact right use of resources given the conditions at hand. To spend energy on growth when the soil is frozen and the light is wrong would not be courageous. It would be catastrophic. The seed survives not despite its dormancy, but because of it. And your mind, your deeply wise and patient mind, knows this too, even if the more anxious layers of your thinking have forgotten it for a while. Embracing the concept of physiological patience to reduce the modern anxiety of constant productivity is not a passive act. It is, in its own way, one of the most active and intentional things you can do. The seed does not drift into dormancy by accident. It enters that state through a precisely orchestrated series of biological events, each one building on the last, each one deepening the quality and the completeness of the rest. In the same way, choosing to rest, truly choosing it rather than collapsing into it from sheer depletion, is a practice. It is something that the mind can learn to do with increasing grace and completeness over time. It is the cultivation of a relationship with stillness, a growing trust that the quiet is safe, that the pause is purposeful, that the darkness is not an absence of light, but a different and equally essential quality of the same unfolding story. Many people resist this dialing down, even when they are exhausted, even when every biological system in their body is asking for it, because the culture of productivity has taught them to associate quietness with unproductiveness. The abscisic acid within the dormant seed would find this puzzling. From the perspective of the seed, the reduction of activity is not unproductiveness. It is the highest form of productivity available during this particular phase. It is the exact right use of resources given the conditions at hand. To spend energy on growth when the soil is frozen and the light is wrong would not be courageous. It would be catastrophic. The seed survives not despite its dormancy, but because of it. And your mind, your deeply wise and patient mind, knows this too, even if the more anxious layers of your thinking have forgotten it for a while. Embracing the concept of physiological patience to reduce the modern anxiety of constant productivity is not a passive act. It is, in its own way, one of the most active and intentional things you can do. The seed does not drift into dormancy by accident. It enters that state through a precisely orchestrated series of biological events, each one building on the last, each one deepening the quality and the completeness of the rest. In the same way, choosing to rest, truly choosing it rather than collapsing into it from sheer depletion, is a practice. It is something that the mind can learn to do with increasing grace and completeness over time. It is the cultivation of a relationship with stillness, a growing trust that the quiet is safe, that the pause is purposeful, that the darkness is not an absence of light, but a different and equally essential quality of the same unfolding story. Let your breath slow now if it has not already. Let the space between your inhale and your exhale lengthen just a little, not forced, not effortful, simply allowed. The seed in the soil does not struggle to be still. It simply is still, because stillness is what the moment requires. And in this moment, right now, stillness is what your moment requires too. There is nothing you need to do. There is no place you need to arrive. There is only this, the gentle and continuing fact of your breathing, your resting body, your mind beginning to loosen its grip on the day's accumulated events and drift slowly and safely, toward the restorative quiet that is waiting for you. Somewhere beneath a meadow, beneath a forest floor carpeted in last year's fallen leaves, there is a seed that looks, to any outward observer, completely inert. A closed, still, silent thing. And yet, if you could see inside it, if you could observe the molecular activity taking place within its cells, you would see something extraordinary. You would see chemistry in motion. You would see the careful, methodical, unhurried work of an organism that is using every moment of its apparent stillness to prepare itself more completely for what is to come. The seed is not doing nothing. The seed is doing everything that can be done right now. And what can be done right now is interior work. Hidden work. Work that will never be visible from the outside, but that will one day produce something visible and beautiful and true. Exploring how seeds undergo internal restructuring while appearing completely motionless to the world is one of the most quietly mind-expanding experiences that plant biology has to offer. During dormancy, seed cells are engaged in processes of repair and reorganization that require the deep quietude of reduced metabolic activity to proceed effectively. Proteins that have been damaged or misfolded are identified and either repaired or broken down and recycled. DNA repair mechanisms operate, correcting the small errors and breaks that accumulate over time in any living organism. The cell's energy reserves are carefully managed, neither spent too quickly nor allowed to deplete entirely, maintained at exactly the level necessary to sustain the processes that matter most during this period of internal preparation. It is a kind of housekeeping so meticulous and so essential that it could only happen in the quiet, away from the demands of active growth, in the peace of apparent stillness. Paralleling the seed's metabolic slowdown with the human subconscious mind's work during REM sleep opens up a window into something we are only beginning to fully appreciate in neuroscience, which is the extraordinary sophistication of the brain's activity during what we used to dismiss as unconsciousness. REM sleep, named for the rapid eye movements that characterize it, is now understood to be one of the most neurologically active states the brain experiences. It is during REM sleep that the brain processes the emotional content of the day's experiences, running them through circuits that involve the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the prefrontal cortex in a way that gradually reduces the emotional intensity of difficult memories while preserving their factual content. It is during REM sleep that creative connections are made between seemingly unrelated pieces of information, producing the insights and the sudden solutions that so often arrive fully formed the morning after a good night's rest. And it is during REM sleep that the brain's neural networks are pruned and strengthened, with connections that have been well used becoming more efficient and connections that are redundant or counterproductive being quietly eliminated. What makes this so deeply resonant with the experience of the dormant seed is the combination of apparent stillness and genuine, essential, transformative activity happening beneath the surface. You cannot see the seed doing its repair work. You cannot see the sleeping brain making its connections. From the outside, both appear simply to be resting. But rest, in both cases, is not an absence of process. It is a different kind of process, one that requires the conditions of quiet precisely because it is doing something that the noise and the motion of active waking life would interrupt and disrupt. The metabolic slowdown of the dormant seed and the shift in brain activity during sleep are not failures of function. They are the function, the specific, irreplaceable, profound function of the resting phase of the cycle. The importance of cold and darkness as catalysts for the most vibrant future transformations is one of the places where the poetic and the scientific converge most beautifully in the story of seeds. We have already touched on stratification, the requirement that many seeds experience a period of sustained cold before they can germinate. But the psychological resonance of this biological fact deserves to be held a little longer, turned over gently in the mind, the way a smooth stone is turned over in the hand, appreciated for all its surfaces. The seed requires cold, not despite wanting to grow, but in order to grow. The cold is not the enemy of the spring to come. The cold is the preparation for it. Without the cold, the spring would arrive to a seed that was not yet ready, and all the warmth and the light and the rain would find no purchase, because the seed's chemistry had not yet completed the work that only cold could do. Many people experience periods in their lives that feel like cold and darkness, periods of apparent inactivity, of withdrawal, of difficulty, of the kind of quiet that is not peaceful, but simply empty and heavy and long. And the seed story does not promise that these periods are easy. It does not suggest that darkness is always comfortable or that cold is always welcome. But it does say something quietly important, which is that what happens in the cold and the dark is real. It counts. It is not time lost, but time used, in a different way than growth uses time, in a way that makes growth later not just possible but more complete and more vibrant and more true. The flowers that come from seeds that have experienced the full length of a proper winter are not weaker for having waited. They are more fully themselves, having been prepared by exactly the conditions they needed. There is a particular kind of courage in stillness that rarely gets named as courage, because our culture tends to reserve that word for action, for movement, for the visible and the effortful. But the seed's form of courage, the courage of remaining intact through conditions that press against every surface, that offer no encouragement and no reward visible from the outside, is a form of courage that we could stand to honor more in ourselves and in one another. The person who is resting when everything around them is moving is not failing. The person who is choosing quiet when noise would be easier is not avoiding. They are doing something that requires a particular kind of strength, the strength of trusting a process that is invisible, of holding a boundary without apology, of allowing the interior work to proceed undisturbed by the demands and the optics of the outer world. Identifying the specific environmental cues that signal the end of a long period of waiting is a science of extraordinary nuance in plant biology. Temperature, as we have explored, is a primary signal, but it is rarely temperature alone. The seed integrates multiple simultaneous inputs, reading the overall pattern of its environment rather than responding to any single factor in isolation. Light quality and duration, the length of the day relative to the length of the night, tells the seed where it is in the seasonal cycle. The presence of certain chemicals in the soil, released by decomposing organic matter or by the roots of neighboring plants, adds another layer of information. Even the vibration of rainfall transmitted through the soil can trigger responses in waiting seeds. The seed does not germinate because one thing changes. It germinates because enough things change, because the pattern of signals becomes one that its ancient chemistry recognizes as the signature of genuine spring, of true readiness, of the moment that has been encoded in its nature since before it was formed. There is something almost musical about this process if you allow the metaphor. A single note is not a chord. A single condition is not readiness. The seed listens, in its molecular way, for the full chord of spring to sound before it begins to respond. Temperature must harmonize with light. Moisture must complement warmth. The chemical signals from the soil must resolve into a pattern that the seed recognizes, not consciously, not through anything resembling thought, but through the quiet, absolute precision of biochemistry that has been tuned by millions of years of consequence. When the chord is wrong, the seed holds. When the chord is right, the response is immediate and complete. And the beauty of this is that the seed does not have to decide whether the chord is right. It simply responds when it is, because its responsiveness to rightness is built into its nature as surely as its dormancy. Readiness and response are two sides of the same biological truth. How the human psyche prepares for a growth spurt during the quietest hours of the night is a question that sleep researchers and psychologists are answering with increasing precision and with results that consistently point in the same direction. The brain during deep sleep and the transitional moments between sleep stages is doing work that mirrors the seed's integration of environmental signals. It is consolidating the learning of the day, deciding which experiences to preserve in long-term memory and which to release. It is integrating new information with existing knowledge, building the richer and more complex understanding that will allow for more sophisticated responses to future challenges. It is processing the emotional texture of the day's events, softening the edges of what was difficult, reinforcing the resonance of what was meaningful. And it is doing all of this quietly, without the conscious mind's interference, in the dark, in the stillness that you are inhabiting right now. The growth spurt that follows a period of genuine rest is not metaphorical. It is measurable. Studies of learning and memory consistently show that material studied before sleep is better retained the following morning than material studied without subsequent sleep. Athletes who sleep more show measurably improved performance and reaction times. Emotional regulation, the ability to respond to difficulty with flexibility rather than reactivity, is significantly better after adequate sleep than after sleep deprivation. The quiet hours of the night are not empty hours. They are the hours in which the work you have done during the day is consolidated and strengthened and integrated into the richer, more capable version of yourself that will wake up tomorrow morning. Visualizing the cellular expansion that occurs when the mind finally feels safe enough to let go is one of the most beautiful images that this quiet evening's exploration has to offer. Germination begins at the cellular level with the uptake of water. The cells of the embryo, long held in their compact and dormant state, begin to absorb moisture and expand. Not explosively, not with urgency, with the slow and steady certainty of a process that knows it has all the time it needs, now that the waiting is done and the conditions are right. This expansion changes the physical structure of the seed almost imperceptibly at first, then more noticeably, as the radical, the first tiny root, begins to push through the seed coat and reach downward into the earth that has held the seed for so long. This moment is not a departure from the dormancy that preceded it. It is its fulfillment. All of the careful preservation, all of the chemical monitoring, all of the patient waiting was leading to exactly this. To the moment when the cell walls soften just enough, when the water enters just fast enough, when the energy reserves are released in exactly the right sequence to allow the first small and tentative and entirely real movement of life outward into the world. The seed does not think about this moment. It does not plan it or worry about it or wonder if it is ready. It simply begins because the signals have said begin and the body knows what to do. Your mind and body carry this same knowing, not as a conscious plan, but as a deep and embedded wisdom that does not require your management. When you allow yourself to rest completely, when you stop directing and controlling and monitoring your own interior experience, and simply let the night do what the night does, the processes that matter most begin. The consolidation happens. The repair happens. The integration happens. The quiet cellular work of becoming more yourself, more resilient, more clear, more ready, happens without your effort and indeed could not happen with it. This is perhaps the deepest and most liberating truth that the dormant seed has to offer. You do not have to make growth happen. You have to make space for it to happen. And space tonight looks like this. Like the permission you have already given yourself to be here, to be still, to allow the night to work. There is a particular species of lotus plant, the sacred lotus of Asia, whose seeds have been found in ancient lake beds and carefully coaxed into germination centuries after they fell. Some lotus seeds have been successfully germinated after more than 1,000 years of dormancy, their embryos still viable, still intact, still carrying within them the complete information and the complete readiness for life that they had when they first formed. The seed does not age in the way that a waking organism ages. In its dormancy, it holds itself outside of the ordinary flow of biological time, preserved in a kind of suspended completeness that our own waking minds can barely imagine. And when the conditions were finally right, when warmth and water and light aligned in the way that the seed's chemistry recognized as genuine opportunity, the seed began. Without hesitation, without difficulty. After 1,000 years of waiting, it simply began. Integrating the lessons of biological stillness into a sustainable rhythm for daily mental health is not a project for tonight. Tonight is simply for resting. But the understanding that we carry into rest shapes the quality of that rest in important ways. And so, it is worth allowing these ideas to settle into you as you drift towards sleep. The sustainable rhythm that plant biology points toward is one of alternation, of genuine engagement with the active phases of life and genuine surrender to the restorative phases. Not a grudging, guilt-laden, ever-shortened rest, but a full and trusting descent into the quiet that precedes and makes possible the next season of growth. Seeds do not ration their dormancy. They do not lie in the soil worrying that they are sleeping too long or feeling guilty about not yet being a plant. They rest for exactly as long as the conditions require, and then they begin. This is the rhythm. This is the pattern. This is the biological truth that millions of years of evolution have encoded in the very structure of life itself. Recognizing that your period of rest is the actual foundation for your next visible success is a reframing that many people find difficult to hold onto during the day, but much easier to accept during the quiet of the night. And perhaps that is exactly where it belongs, in the nighttime understanding, in the body's own knowledge that what is happening right now in this stillness is not separate from what will happen tomorrow, but is, in fact, the precondition and the preparation for it. The athlete who rests before a competition is not losing training time. The scientist who sleeps before a difficult problem is not abandoning the work. The person who allows themselves a full night of genuine sleep is not being lazy. They are being intelligent in the way that the lotus seed is intelligent, in the way that the oak's acorn is intelligent, in the way that every seed that has ever survived a winter and produced a spring has been intelligent. They are using the quiet time for what the quiet time is for. What does a sustainable rhythm look like for a human being living in the modern world, with its artificial lights and its notifications and its blurring of the boundaries between work and rest, between day and night, between the time that belongs to productivity and the time that belongs to restoration? The seed does not face these complications. Its environment, even when harsh, is at least honest about what it is. Winter is cold. Night is dark. The signals are clear even when they are difficult. But the human nervous system is remarkably adaptable, and the same sensitivity that makes it vulnerable to disruption by artificial light and digital stimulation also makes it responsive to the practices that can restore the signal clarity it needs. Darkness before sleep, genuine darkness, the kind that allows the melatonin to rise and signal the brain that night has arrived, is one of those practices. Quiet before sleep, the gradual reduction of the informational and emotional input that keeps the nervous system alert and processing, is another. The gradual cooling of the body that happens naturally as the night deepens is a third, a signal that is built into the architecture of the sleep system and that works most reliably when we allow the temperature to follow the natural curve of the night rather than overriding it. These are not complicated practices. They are simply the conditions that allow the biology to do what the biology already knows how to do. Just as the seed needs nothing added to it in order to germinate, only the right conditions provided, the sleeping human needs nothing added to the night. Only the right conditions, the darkness and the quiet and the permission to stop, and the addition, if anything, of the gentle certainty that says this is safe. This is right. This is the time for the body's own ancient wisdom to do its work. There are studies of creative problem-solving that demonstrate in measurable ways how rest is not the interruption of productive work, but is, itself, a form of the most productive work the brain can do. Participants who are given a complex problem and then allowed to sleep before continuing consistently arrive at solutions that participants who worked continuously through the night cannot reach regardless of how much effort they apply. The sleeping brain does not just rest. It works in a way that the waking brain cannot, making the associative connections and the lateral leaps that produce genuine insight rather than incremental progress. The seed germinates after dormancy, not despite having rested, but because of it. And the insight arrives after sleep, not despite the interruption of conscious effort, but because of it. Rest is not the interruption of work. Rest is the work that makes the other work possible, the underground work, the invisible work, the work that looks like doing nothing but is, in the chemistry of the sleeping brain and the dormant seed alike, the most consequential work of all. Imagine the soil right now, wherever you are, beneath the foundations of buildings, beneath the streets, beneath the parks and the gardens and the wild places at the edges of towns and cities. Everywhere, in an unbroken layer of darkness and moisture and mineral richness, seeds are waiting. Millions and millions and millions of seeds, each one a complete and patient holder of potential, each one having made its biological decision to wait, each one carrying within its tiny and perfect structure everything that will ever be needed for the life it is going to live. They are not rushing. They are not anxious. They do not know about the concept of time management or the pressure of productivity. They know only this: the temperature of the soil, the quality of the darkness, the slow percolation of moisture, and the certain knowledge encoded in their very chemistry that the moment will come. The moment always comes. Your rest tonight is exactly this. It is a seed's certainty. It is the deep and quiet confidence that knows, not through thinking but through being, that the stillness is purposeful, the dark is temporary, and what is happening in the hidden interior of this quiet night is exactly what needs to happen. Not more, not less, not sooner, not later. Now, here, in this darkness, in this rest, in this beautiful and necessary and profoundly wise descent into the quiet that is not emptiness, but is instead the fullest possible preparation for everything that is still to come. There is a word in plant science that sounds almost like something you might hear in a poem. The word is vernalization, and it describes the process by which many seeds and plants require a sustained period of cold in order to flower. Without the cold, the flower does not come. Not because the cold creates the flower directly, but because the cold creates the readiness for the flower, the internal chemical permission, the structural preparation, the hormonal priming that allows the plant, when warmth arrives, to do what it was always going to do. Vernalization is, in a very real sense, the science of how winter makes spring possible. And it is one of the most quietly beautiful ideas in all of biology. The gentle affirmations that biology offers us on the inevitability of growth following deep and restorative rest are not the kind of affirmations that come with urgency or command. They are softer than that. They are the kind that arrive as observations rather than instructions, as the quiet recognition of a pattern that has been true for longer than human language has existed to name it. Every seed that passes through its full winter of dormancy and emerges into the warmth of genuine spring will grow. Not might grow, will grow. The conditions create the inevitability. The waiting creates the readiness. The stillness creates the capacity for motion. This is not hope. This is biology. This is the pattern that life has followed for hundreds of millions of years, in every climate and every ecosystem and every corner of the planet where seeds have ever existed. You will grow, not because you force it, not because you stay awake worrying about it, not because you sacrifice rest in the name of productivity. You will grow because you rest, because you allow the dark to do what darkness does, because you trust the quiet the way the seed trusts the soil, because the readiness that is being built inside you right now, in this stillness, is real and is accumulating and will not be lost. It is as real as the lotus seed lying in the mud of a forgotten lake bed for 1,000 years and still remembering, when the moment came, exactly how to begin. Let these thoughts become less distinct now. Let them soften at the edges and lose their sharpness and become more like the quality of quiet itself than like thoughts that need to be held or remembered or examined. You have heard what you needed to hear. Your mind has received what it was ready to receive. And now the most intelligent thing, the most evolutionarily sound and biologically wise and deeply human thing that you can do is to follow the seed's example and let the night be what the night is for. The soil that surrounds a seed is not just a container. It is a community, a world of extraordinary density and activity and interdependence that exists on a scale so small and so intricate that even with modern microscopes and genetic sequencing tools, scientists are still uncovering new dimensions of its complexity. A single teaspoon of healthy soil contains more living organisms than there are people on the surface of the earth. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, mites, and a bewildering array of other tiny beings, all of them moving and feeding and communicating and dying and contributing their chemistry to the shared environment that surrounds the waiting seed. And the seed is not separate from this community. It is embedded in it, in conversation with it, shaped by it, and in some ways dependent on it for the signals that will eventually tell it when the time is right. The relationship between seeds and the mycorrhizal fungi that thread through healthy soil is one of the most quietly astonishing stories in all of biology. These fungi, invisible to the naked eye, form networks through the soil that connect plants to one another, allowing the transfer of nutrients and chemical signals across distances that would otherwise be impossible to bridge. Seeds of many species are primed to respond to chemical signals from these fungal networks, signals that communicate information about the state of the ecosystem, the availability of resources, the presence or absence of competitors and pathogens. The seed in its dormancy is not isolated from this conversation. It is listening even while it is still. And the information it receives from the soil community around it is part of the complex environmental assessment that will eventually inform its decision to begin. What this suggests, on a psychological level, is something that mental health researchers have increasingly come to understand as essential to human resilience, which is that recovery and rest do not happen in isolation. They happen in the context of connection, of the quiet support of the relationships and communities and environments that surround us, even when we are not actively reaching out to them. The soil nurtures the seed not through dramatic intervention, but through simple presence, through the constant quiet work of maintaining the conditions in which life can be preserved and prepared. And the relationships that nurture human beings through periods of rest and difficulty often work the same way, not through large gestures or intense effort, but through the consistent, low-key, reliable presence that says you are held, you are surrounded, you are not alone in the dark. The wood wide web as scientists have sometimes called the mycorrhizal network of a forest, is a communication and resource-sharing system of extraordinary generosity. Older, established trees, sometimes called mother trees by researchers who have spent years mapping these underground connections, will share sugars and nutrients through the fungal network with younger, struggling seedlings, including seedlings of different species that share no direct genetic relationship with them. The forest, viewed from above, looks like a collection of separate individual trees competing for light and space. Viewed from below, it reveals itself as a community of profound mutual support, with resources flowing from abundance toward need, with chemical messages traveling between root systems to warn of pest attacks or drought, with the entire network functioning as something closer to a single organism than to a collection of competing individuals. The seed that lies dormant in this network soil is not just resting in dirt. It is resting in a community. The chemical signals of the fungal network pass around it and sometimes through it. The metabolic activity of the soil organisms creates a thermal and chemical environment that is actively regulated by the living community rather than simply existing as a passive container. The seed is, in its dormancy, held by a web of life so intricate and so interconnected that the boundary between the individual seed and its environment is, at the molecular level, genuinely difficult to draw. You too are held by a web of connection that does not cease to function simply because you are asleep. The people who have shaped you, the places that have formed you, the accumulated experience of everything you have lived through, these are the mycorrhizal network of your life, surrounding you in the dark, maintaining the chemical and relational conditions that allow the essential interior work of rest to proceed. Allow the thought of being held to accompany you now, as you sink a little deeper into the rest that is already gathering around you. You are held. The surface beneath you holds your body. The air around you holds your breath. The night holds the quiet that your mind needs. And somewhere, perhaps closer than you think, the people and the places and the experiences that have shaped you are holding you too, in the way that the soil holds the seed, not tightly, not with demand, but with a steady and reliable presence that asks nothing of you right now except to be still. The diversity of seed dormancy strategies across the plant kingdom is so vast and so inventive that it reads almost like a catalog of creative solutions to the common challenge of survival. There are seeds so light that they can be carried on the wind for miles before settling, and their dormancy is timed to the season in ways that ensure they do not germinate immediately, but wait until conditions have stabilized. There are seeds with coats so hard and impervious that they can pass through the digestive systems of animals and emerge still viable, their dormancy mechanisms intact, now deposited in a new location with a natural fertilizer already present. There are seeds that produce their own chemical inhibitors, compounds released into the soil around them that prevent even their own germination until those inhibitors have been leached away by sufficient rainfall, a mechanism that ensures the seed does not germinate during a brief shower, but only after a sustained and reliable wet period. Each of these strategies is a different answer to the same biological question, which is, how do I wait for the right moment without losing what I am carrying? This question, how do I wait without losing what I am carrying, is one that every human being who has ever been exhausted or overwhelmed, or in the middle of a difficult season of life, has also had to answer. And the seed's answer, encoded in thousands of different strategies across hundreds of thousands of species, is always some version of the same thing. You wait by protecting the interior. You wait by maintaining the boundary between yourself and the conditions that are not yet right. You wait by trusting the chemistry of your own nature, the built-in wisdom that knows what it needs and will recognize the right moment when it arrives. And you wait by releasing the need to make something happen before the conditions are genuine, before the warmth is real, before the light has reached the depth where you are. The science of seed dispersal is, in its own quiet way, a love story. Before a seed can rest, it must first travel, and the ways in which seeds travel are among the most beautiful expressions of biological relationship in the natural world. Some seeds are carried by wind, their structures so light or so shaped that air currents can lift them and carry them far from their parent plant. The maple's winged seed spirals down through autumn air with a grace that seems almost choreographed. The dandelion's seed, attached to its perfect sphere of white filaments, rides the breath of the wind and the breath of children who blow on it with a wish. Other seeds hitch rides with animals. Their surfaces evolve to cling to fur or feathers, traveling in company even without awareness. Still others are swallowed as fruit, the seed's toughness protecting it through the journey and deposited in a new place, already wrapped in nourishment. The seed goes where it cannot take itself. It trusts the wind, the animal, the river, the bird. And having arrived, it rests. There is something in this sequence that feels relevant to the human experience of arriving at a place of necessary rest. Often, we do not choose rest directly. We are carried to it by exhaustion, by circumstances, by the quiet wisdom of the body that eventually insists on what the mind has been refusing. The seed does not pilot its own dispersal. It offers itself to the forces that are larger than itself and allows them to carry it where it needs to go. And then, having arrived, it stops resisting and begins the long and patient work of waiting. Perhaps tonight is your dispersal moment. Perhaps the winds of the day have carried you here, to this stillness, to this quiet, and now the only thing that remains is to stop and let the soil receive you and let the waiting begin. The embryo at the heart of every seed is perhaps the most concentrated form of biological potential on the planet. Tiny beyond easy imagination, it contains within its cells the complete genetic blueprint for every structure the plant will ever produce. Every leaf and root and stem and flower and fruit and seed, all of it encoded and waiting, held in perfect order, ready to unfold in precisely the sequence that the plant's nature dictates. The embryo does not know what it will become in the sense of conscious anticipation, but it carries what it will become in the most literal and complete sense possible. Every cell of the future plant is already planned for, already provided for, already written into the chemical instructions that the embryo holds. Nothing is missing. Nothing is incomplete. The potential is whole, even before it has begun to express itself. The idea that your own potential is whole, even before it has fully expressed itself, is not a motivational sentiment. It is a biological observation about the nature of living systems. You carry within you, right now in this moment of rest, the complete architecture of the person you are becoming. The understanding you will arrive at, the capacity you will develop, the resilience you will express in the seasons ahead are not absent from you now. They are present in you now in the way that the oak is present in the acorn, in potential form, waiting for the conditions that will allow them to unfold. Rest does not deplete that potential. Rest protects it. Rest is the coat around the embryo, the boundary that keeps the interior safe, the patient darkness that holds what is coming without rushing it or exhausting it before its time. Let your mind visit a forest for a moment, not with effort, but gently, the way the mind sometimes wanders in the early stages of sleep. A forest where the light comes down through layers of leaves in shifting, dappled patterns, where the air smells of earth and moisture and the sweet decay of leaves returning to soil. Beneath your imagined feet, beneath the soft carpet of moss and leaf litter, the seeds are there, as they always are, in their millions, in their patient and purposeful silence. You do not need to see them. You do not need to understand everything about them. You only need to know that they are there and that they are doing what they need to do, and that when the time comes, they will not fail to begin. This knowing is enough. This gentle and enormous knowing is enough. The relationship between light and seed germination is one of those biological stories that seems almost too elegant to be true. Recall that within many seeds, the phytochrome receptors respond to the ratio of red to far-red light, a ratio that changes predictably with depth in the soil, with the presence of shading from leaf canopies, with the time of day and the time of year. The seed can detect, through this ratio, not just whether light is present, but whether that light represents a genuine opportunity for growth. A seed beneath a dense canopy of leaves receives light shifted toward the far-red end of the spectrum, a signal that says the competition here is intense, the resources may be insufficient, the moment is not right. A seed in open soil, or in a clearing where light reaches the ground more directly, receives a different signal. A signal that says the way is clear, that sunlight is genuinely available, that this is the place and this is the time. How quietly extraordinary it is that an organism no larger than a grain of sand can read the quality of light with a precision that tells it whether its future will be one of struggle in deep shade or flourishing in open sun. And yet this is what seeds do. They are not passive. They are not random. They are reading the world around them with molecular instruments so refined and so sensitive that we are still working to fully map all of their capabilities. The seed's sensitivity to light is a kind of intelligence, not the kind that requires a brain or a nervous system or any of the structures we associate with thought, but a kind of distributed, chemical, evolutionary intelligence that has been refined over eons into something extraordinarily capable. Your own sensitivity, your own capacity to read the quality of the environment around you and respond accordingly, is a similarly ancient and similarly sophisticated kind of intelligence. The nervous system that tells you when you are safe enough to rest, when the metaphorical ratio of signals is right for surrender and quiet, is working right now. It has been assessing your environment, your body temperature, your position, the quality of the sounds around you, the darkness behind your closed eyelids, and it has concluded, as gently and as certainly as the seed concludes, that the conditions are right. That this is the moment. That the door to rest is open and there is nothing blocking the way. Some of the most extraordinary seeds in the plant kingdom belong to plants that have adapted to the most extreme environments on Earth, deserts and polar tundras, and the high alpine zones above the tree line, where the window for growth is brief, and the conditions are unpredictable, and the margin for error is essentially zero. These seeds have developed dormancy strategies of remarkable precision and stubbornness, sometimes requiring a combination of temperature cycling, chemical treatment, and physical scarification of the seed coat before germination will begin. They have, in evolutionary terms, overprotected themselves, building so many layers of dormancy that the conditions required to breach them are very specific and very demanding. Because in their environments, a false start is not just a setback. It is a death sentence. In the desert, a seed that germinates during a brief rain and then faces weeks of drought before it can establish a root system will not survive. So the seed waits. Through rain after rain after rain. Through seasons that might, to a more optimistic organism, seem like perfectly adequate opportunities. Until the conditions are not just good, but definitively, undeniably, unmistakably right. There is a lesson here that is both challenging and deeply compassionate, depending on how you hold it. The lesson is that knowing when to wait, and continuing to wait even when waiting is difficult, even when external conditions seem like they might be adequate, is not timidity. It is survival intelligence. There are times in human life when the conditions that appear to be opportunities are not yet the right conditions, when the warmth is a brief thaw rather than a true spring, when the momentum that seems to be building is not yet sustained enough to support what you are trying to grow. And the seed, in those moments, does not apologize for its continued dormancy. It simply waits. Not passively, not without interior work, but with the completely assured patience of an organism that has learned, through the long education of evolution, exactly how important it is to wait for the right moment rather than the first available one. Your rest tonight is part of that wisdom. It is not the first available moment of quiet. It is the right moment, the moment your body and your brain and your deep biological nature have been moving toward through the entire arc of the day. And in choosing it, in allowing it, in sinking into it the way the seed sinks into the embrace of dark soil, you are expressing exactly the same intelligence that the desert seed expresses when it waits through 100 false springs for the one that is real. Your rest tonight is part of that wisdom. It is not the first available moment of quiet. It is the right moment, the moment your body and your brain and your deep biological nature have been moving toward through the entire arc of the day. And in choosing it, in allowing it, in sinking into it the way the seed sinks into the embrace of dark soil, you are expressing exactly the same intelligence that the desert seed expresses when it waits through 100 false springs for the one that is real. There is a quality of attention that the sleeping mind develops over the course of a full night of rest that is quite different from the attention available at any earlier point in the sleep cycle. Researchers who study sleep architecture, the specific sequence of sleep stages that the brain moves through during a healthy night of rest, describe a progression from lighter stages of non-REM sleep through deeper stages characterized by large, slow delta waves, and then back into lighter sleep and REM, a cycle that repeats several times across the night. Each cycle through this architecture accomplishes something slightly different. The early cycles are rich in deep, slow-wave sleep, which is when the most intensive physical restoration and memory consolidation occurs. The later cycles, in the hours closest to morning, are richer in REM sleep, which is when emotional processing and creative integration are most active. A full night of sleep is not simply a longer version of a partial night. It is a qualitatively different experience, one in which all the stages are visited in their proper proportions and all the forms of restoration they enable are allowed to complete themselves. This is why the seed that is given its full period of stratification, its full winter of cold, is more ready and more capable when spring arrives than a seed that has been given only a partial cold treatment. The depth and completeness of the dormancy shapes the quality and the capacity of the germination that follows. A partial rest produces a partially restored person. A full rest, given all the time it needs to move through its own natural architecture, produces a person who is, in the most literal neurological sense, more fully themselves than they were before they lay down to sleep. More clear, more capable, more emotionally available, more creatively connected, more resilient in the face of whatever the next day will bring. The full rest is not a luxury. It is the mechanism by which the best version of you, the most complete and most functional and most genuinely alive version of you, is made available to the world. The glymphatic system, whose nighttime work we touched on earlier, is perhaps the most striking recent discovery about what happens in the brain during sleep, and it deserves a moment of quiet attention, not because you need to think about it carefully, but because the image it offers is so beautifully appropriate for this late hour. During sleep, the brain's cells actually shrink slightly, opening up wider channels between them, and cerebrospinal fluid flows through these channels more vigorously than it does during waking, carrying away the waste products of the day's neural activity. This flow is the brain washing itself, cleaning the space between its cells so that the next day's activity begins in a cleaner, clearer environment. The brain, in other words, needs the quiet of sleep not just to rest, but to clean itself, to remove the accumulated residue of waking thought and prepare the ground for the next day's experience. It is doing exactly what the seed's cellular repair mechanisms do during dormancy, removing the damaged and the excess, restoring the conditions of optimal function, so that what begins the next cycle begins from a place of genuine readiness rather than accumulated depletion. Your chemistry is being cleaned right now, gently and without effort, as you drift deeper into the rest that your biology has been preparing you for all day. Nothing is required of you except this continued descent, this willingness to keep releasing, to keep softening the grip, to keep trusting that what is happening in the dark is good and necessary and exactly right. The chemistry that governs the transition from dormancy to germination involves a beautiful antagonism between two groups of hormones. The dormancy-maintaining abscisic acid that we have already visited, and the germination-promoting gibberellins, a family of hormones that begin to accumulate in the seed as conditions become favorable, and that, when they reach sufficient concentration, begin to override the signals of rest. The gibberellins activate enzymes that break down the seed's stored starch reserves, releasing energy in exactly the form the embryo needs to begin its first tentative growth. They loosen the cell walls, allowing the uptake of water that drives the initial expansion. They signal to the cells of the embryo that the time for protective withdrawal is ending and the time for directed, purposeful growth is beginning. The transition is not abrupt. It is not a switch that flips from off to on. It is a gradual shift in the chemical balance, a slow accumulation of readiness that eventually reaches a threshold, and at that threshold, quietly and without fanfare, life begins to move again. The threshold idea is important because it speaks to something real about how transformation actually happens in living systems, both plant and human. Change does not typically announce itself in advance. It does not come with a visible countdown or a clear signal that the transition is approaching. Instead, it accumulates quietly beneath the surface in the chemistry and the structure and the slowly shifting balance of forces, until one day the balance tips and what was potential becomes actual. The seed does not know on the day before germination that tomorrow it will begin. It only knows the conditions of today, and those conditions are doing their work on its chemistry in ways that will only become apparent when the threshold is crossed. The germination does not come because the seed decided it was time. It comes because the preparation, accumulated across days and weeks, and perhaps months of patient waiting, has finally reached the point of sufficient readiness. The human experiences of insight, of creative breakthrough, of emotional healing, of the sudden sense that something that was impossible has quietly become possible, often arrive in exactly this way. Not because we planned them or forced them, but because the accumulated work of rest and processing and integration finally reached a threshold, and at that threshold, something shifted. The insight that arrives upon waking, the solution that becomes clear during a walk, the emotional resolution that comes unexpectedly on an ordinary afternoon are not accidents. They are the visible expression of a process that has been accumulating beneath the surface through many quiet hours that felt, from the inside, like nothing much was happening. But something was always happening. The gibberellins were accumulating. The threshold was approaching. The beginning was getting ready to begin. There is a beautiful phrase in ecology, the seed bank, and it refers to the collection of seeds present in the soil at any given time, dormant and waiting, representing the accumulated reproductive potential of the plant community that exists and has existed in that place. A healthy seed bank is an indication of a healthy ecosystem, because it means that even if the visible plants above ground are disturbed or destroyed, the capacity for regeneration is preserved beneath the surface, ready to respond when conditions allow. After a forest fire, it is often the seed bank that makes possible the remarkable speed of ecological recovery, as seeds that have waited through years or decades of dormancy suddenly find themselves in the post-fire conditions that their biology recognizes as the right moment to begin. The image of the seed bank is a powerful one for thinking about human resilience. Each of us carries our own seed bank, a reservoir of potential, of dormant capacities and unexercised strengths and not yet expressed qualities that have been preserved through the difficult seasons of our lives. These seeds in us are not lost simply because they have not yet germinated. They are waiting for conditions, waiting for the particular combination of support and readiness and opportunity that will allow them to begin. And the rest we take, the genuine, full, trusting rest we allow ourselves, is one of the most important ways we tend that interior seed bank, keeping its contents viable, maintaining the conditions of the soil of ourselves, so that when the right moment arrives, we have everything we need. What is perhaps most comforting about the seed bank metaphor is its inherent generosity. A seed bank is not stingy. It does not run out of seeds for lack of use. It is replenished by every season that passes, every experience that plants a new seed in the soil of awareness, every encounter that leaves behind something that may not be ready to grow yet, but is safely stored, waiting. Your life has been planting seeds in you for as long as you have been living it. Some of them have already germinated and grown into the person you are right now. Others are still waiting, held safely in the dark of your own interior soil, not yet awakened by the conditions that will eventually reach them. And tonight, while you sleep, the conditions in that interior soil are being tended. The temperature is right. The moisture is present. The dark is deep and safe, and full of the quiet that seeds need to maintain their patience without diminishing their potential. You are tending your seed bank simply by allowing this rest. That is enough. That is, in the economy of life's deep wisdom, more than enough. Let your awareness drift now, gently and without direction, in the way that awareness drifts when sleep is genuinely near. Not trying to stay with any particular thought, not monitoring the approach of sleep, just allowing the boundary between thinking and resting to become a little less distinct. The seeds in the soil do not resist the settling of darkness. They do not try to stay alert to the moment when light will return. They simply rest in the dark, doing their interior work at a pace that the dark allows, and trusting that the light will come because the light always comes. Water is the universal solvent of life, and for the seed, the entry of water is both the sign and the beginning of everything. Before germination, the seed is remarkably dry, its moisture content reduced to a tiny fraction of what it will be once the process of germination begins. This dryness is part of what makes dormancy possible, because many of the chemical reactions that would lead to growth require water as a medium in which to take place. When water begins to enter the seed, it is not just a physical event. It is a chemical invitation, the opening of a door that has been closed for the entire duration of dormancy. Enzymes that have been inactive begin to function. Proteins begin to be synthesized. The stored reserves of starch and oil that the parent plant packed so carefully into the seed begin to be mobilized and directed toward the cells that need them. All of this begins with water, with the simple, ancient, universal presence of water. The process by which water enters the seed is called imbibition, a word that comes from the Latin for drinking, and it is an apt description. The seed drinks. After days or weeks or months or years of dryness, the seed encounters the moisture that signals the arrival of conditions compatible with life, and it begins, slowly and then more rapidly, to absorb it. The seed may double or triple in size during the early stages of imbibition, as its cells take in water and the structures that have been held in compact, dehydrated form begin to expand into their full three-dimensional shapes. This expansion is not just a physical swelling. It is the restoration of molecular function. Enzymes that could not work when dehydrated regain their activity as water provides the medium in which they can move and interact with their substrates. The seed is not just getting bigger. It is becoming biochemically alive again in a way that dormancy had suspended but not extinguished. There is something in this image of imbibition, of the long dry thing finally drinking, finally taking in what it has been without, that feels deeply resonant for the human experience of genuine rest after sustained depletion. So many people arrive at sleep in a state of something like dryness, depleted of the emotional and neurological moisture that allows the mind's processes to function optimally. The stress hormones that accumulate during prolonged waking, the inflammatory markers that build with sleep deprivation, the neurotransmitter imbalances that contribute to the anxiety and the low mood that characterize exhaustion, all of these are, in a biological sense, the dryness of the overworked seed. And sleep, when it is full and genuine and allowed to run its full course, is the imbibition, the moisture that restores molecular function, the medium in which the processes that have been suspended can begin again. Not with a dramatic announcement, but with the quiet, biological certainty of a seed that has finally found water and is, at last, beginning to drink. The parallel in human neuroscience is perhaps the presence of the right kind of quiet, the right kind of low-stimulation environment, as the water that allows the sleeping brain's essential processes to begin. Cognitive neuroscientists have found that the brain's glymphatic system, a network of fluid-filled channels that serves a cleansing and clearing function analogous to the lymphatic system in the rest of the body, is most active during sleep, and specifically during the deeper stages of sleep, characterized by large, slow brainwaves. This system clears metabolic waste products from the brain, including proteins associated with neurodegenerative disease when they accumulate in excess. It operates most efficiently when the brain is in the quiet, low-activity state of deep sleep. Like the enzyme activity that begins when water enters the dormant seed, the brain's clearing work begins when the conditions of rest are genuinely present. It cannot happen adequately in the half-sleep of the too stimulated, too anxious, too monitored mind. It requires the full and genuine water of real rest. Give yourself that now. The full water of real rest. The full permission of genuine quiet. Notice the sounds in the environment around you, if there are any, and let them be part of the background of the dark, rather than objects that require your attention. Notice your breath moving in and out, and let it slow, not forced, simply allowed to find its own resting pace, the pace of a body that is no longer called upon to do anything at all except breathe and be. Let the thoughts that remain drift like the last light on the surface of a still pond before full dark, visible for a moment, then gone, leaving only the smooth and unmarked surface of the water itself. There is a plant called the Judean date palm that went extinct in the region of Israel and Palestine approximately 500 years ago. In 2005, seeds found in an archaeological excavation at Masada, seeds that had been sitting in storage for approximately 2,000 years, were carefully planted by a botanist named Elaine Soloway. One of them germinated from a seed that had lain still for 2 millennia, longer than the entire span of the modern era, longer than the existence of the technology you used to find this recording. A palm tree began to grow. They named it Methuselah, after the biblical figure renowned for extraordinary longevity. And Methuselah grew. Slowly at first, as you might expect from a seed that had been dormant for 2,000 years, but steadily, and with all the characteristics of its ancient species intact, expressed faithfully after an unimaginable wait. The story of Methuselah is not primarily about patience, though patience is certainly present in it. It is about the extraordinary integrity of the dormant state, the way in which the seed, given adequate protection and the right conditions for preservation, can hold its potential intact across a span of time that defeats all ordinary imagination. Nothing essential was lost. Nothing was degraded beyond the point of recovery. The seed held what it was carrying through every century of the wait, with a completeness and a fidelity that seems almost miraculous, but is, in fact, simply the result of what seed dormancy is designed to do. To hold, to protect, to preserve, to wait without losing, to arrive at the right moment whenever that moment comes, with everything still intact. What you are holding tonight in your rest is being held just as faithfully. The understanding you have accumulated, the relationships you have built, the person you have been becoming through all the seasons of your life thus far, none of this is lost to sleep. None of it is set aside or forgotten or diminished by the choice to rest. It is held with the same complete integrity that the dormant seed holds its embryo, through the dark hours, awaiting the return of the light, with everything still present and still true, and still ready to continue the long and beautiful work of becoming. In the years since Methuselah first sprouted, botanists have been able to compare its characteristics with historical and archaeological records of the ancient Judean date palm, a variety prized in antiquity for its fruit and its medicinal properties, but long since lost from the region. And what they have found is that Methuselah matches those historical descriptions with remarkable fidelity. 2,000 years in the dark preserved not just viability, but identity. The genetic information, the physical characteristics, the growth habits that made this variety what it was, all of it came through the long dormancy intact. The seed did not drift toward some averaged-out, generically viable form. It held its specific, particular, individual nature through the entirety of the wait, and when it germinated, it was recognizably, fully, completely itself. This is perhaps the deepest comfort that the dormant seed offers to the resting human mind. Your rest does not erase you. Your sleep does not dissolve the particular, specific, irreplaceable person that you are. When you wake, you will be recognizably, fully, completely yourself, as Methuselah was recognizably the ancient Judean date palm, held intact through all the dark hours by the same biological fidelity that makes life what it is. The quieting of consciousness during sleep is not the quieting of the self. It is the self in its most protected form, held in the deepest interior of its own nature, maintained in the conditions that preserve what matters most, waiting, without loss, for the morning. The poppy is a flower associated with sleep and with remembrance, and there is a quiet rightness in that pairing that plant biology makes explicit. Poppy seeds can remain dormant in the soil for decades, perhaps longer, their germination triggered by disturbance of the soil that brings them closer to the surface and into contact with the quality of light and the temperature fluctuations that signal an appropriate growing environment. This is why poppies often appear after plowing, after construction, after any significant disturbance of the land. They were there all along, waiting in the dark, and the disturbance was their signal. The end of one thing creating, not despite itself, but through itself, the conditions for another thing to begin. This is one of the most resonant truths that dormancy has to offer the human experience, which is that the disruptions, the losses, the changes we did not choose, the disturbances to the surface of the life we thought we were living, these things can be exactly the conditions that allow long-dormant potentials to reach the light. Not because the difficulty is good in itself, but because something in the ecology of a life, like something in the ecology of a field, can use disturbance as a signal for what was waiting to begin. Poppies do not appear after plowing because plowing is beautiful. They appear because the dormant seeds were there and the conditions changed, and change was what they needed. And the field is more beautiful for it, in its own season, in its own time. Your life has had its disturbances. You do not need to visit them tonight. But you can hold, gently and without effort, the knowledge that what has waited quietly within you through those disturbances has not been lost. The dormant potential has been preserved. And the rest you are taking right now is part of the continuing preparation, not for more disturbance, but for the flowering that follows when the conditions are finally, truly, completely right. The science of chronobiology, the study of biological rhythms and their influence on living systems, reveals that seeds are not alone in their sensitivity to cycles of dark and light, of cold and warmth, of rest and activity. Almost every organism on Earth, from the smallest bacterium to the largest mammal, organizes its biology around rhythmic cycles of some kind. The circadian rhythm, the approximately 24-hour internal clock that governs so many aspects of human physiology, is matched in the plant world by a similarly precise biological timekeeping that controls not just germination, but flowering, fruiting, dormancy, and every other phase of the plant's annual cycle. Life is, at the deepest level, rhythmic. It moves in pulses, in cycles, in the alternation of activity and rest, of expansion and contraction, of growth and dormancy that has characterized biology since life first began on this planet. Understanding yourself as part of this rhythm, as subject to cycles just as the seed is subject to cycles, is not a limitation. It is a liberation. It means that the times when you are not visibly growing are not anomalies or failures. They are the dormancy phase of a cycle that, by its very nature, must include dormancy in order to be complete. You are not stuck when you are resting. You are in the phase of the cycle that makes the next phase of growth possible. You are doing, in the timing that is natural to your own biology, exactly what the seed does in the timing that is natural to its nature. You are cycling, and cycles, by definition, continue. The dormancy is always followed by germination. The winter is always followed by spring. The night is always followed by morning. The circadian rhythm operates through a beautifully elegant molecular mechanism, a tiny feedback loop of proteins that activate and inhibit their own production over the course of approximately 24 hours. This loop, present in cells throughout the body, is kept synchronized to the external world primarily by light, the same cue that seeds use to orient themselves to the seasons. In the absence of light, the loop continues to run on its own internal schedule, a free-running clock that maintains a rhythm even when external cues are absent. But in the presence of the regular alternation of light and dark that the natural world provides, the clock is continuously adjusted, kept aligned with the actual cycle of the sun, anchored to the shared rhythm of the planet itself. You are not just resting tonight. You are participating in a planetary rhythm. Your sleepiness is the Earth's rotation, experienced from the inside. And that rhythm is older than your species, older than mammals, older than the forests that now cover the land. It is one of the most ancient things about you, and it is doing its work right now in the darkness and the quiet of this night. Tonight is a night, and that is exactly what it is supposed to be. In the language of traditional plant wisdom, which long predates the science of seed biology but has, in many of its insights, been confirmed by that science, seeds were understood to be not simply objects but subjects, not passive things but agents of their own story. Indigenous cultures across the world developed intricate relationships with the seeds they cultivated and the wild seeds they harvested, relationships characterized by a deep understanding of the seed's temporality, its rhythms, its needs, and its capacities. Seeds were stored with care, not just for practical reasons, but because the people who stored them understood that they were holding something alive, something waiting, something that deserved the protection of the right conditions and the respect of being understood on its own terms. This kind of relational understanding of rest, the recognition that what is resting is not inert, but is a subject with its own process, its own needs, its own wisdom, is something that modern culture has largely lost in its relationship to human sleep and human restoration. We tend to think of sleep as a passive state, as something that happens to us rather than something we do or something we deserve. We measure it by duration and interrupt it with alarms and treat it as a necessary inconvenience rather than as the rich and essential biological event that plant science, echoed by neuroscience, tells us it actually is. The seed, understood by the people who depended on it, was honored in its dormancy. It was given the dark, the cool, the quiet, the conditions it needed, because those who understood it knew that how you treat the waiting phase determines what comes out of it. How you treat yourself tonight, in this waiting phase of your own daily cycle, matters. Not in a way that requires effort or attention, but in the simplest and most fundamental way. Give yourself the dark. Give yourself the quiet. Give yourself the permission to stop monitoring and managing and trying to stay aware. Let the dormancy be what it is. Let the rest be full. And trust, as the seed trusts the soil, that what is held in this dark and quiet time is being held well, and that it will know, when the morning comes, exactly what to do. The study of seed ecology sometimes uses a concept called the regeneration niche, which refers to the specific set of conditions that a seed needs in order to successfully germinate and establish itself as a new plant. Every species has its own regeneration niche, its own particular combination of light, moisture, temperature, soil chemistry, and absence of competition that it has evolved to require. Some niches are very broad, tolerant of wide variation, flexible and opportunistic. Others are extremely narrow, requiring a very specific alignment of factors that may only occur rarely and briefly. Neither broad nor narrow is better. Each is a strategy shaped by the evolutionary history of the species and the nature of the environment it evolved in. The narrow niche species waits longer, but when it germinates, is exquisitely adapted to exactly the conditions it finds. The broad niche species germinates more readily, but may face more varied challenges once it begins. Thinking about your own regeneration niche is a gentle and interesting exercise, not something to analyze with effort tonight, but something to let drift through the mind lightly. What are the conditions that allow you to grow best? What quality of quiet, what degree of solitude or connection, what balance of challenge and support, what particular combination of inputs from the world around you creates the environment in which your own potential most fully expresses itself? You may already know some of this. You may have other parts of it still to discover. And that is fine. The seed does not need to consciously understand its regeneration niche in order to respond to it. The knowledge is in its chemistry, built into its nature. Your knowledge of your own nature is built in too, and this quiet, dark, resting time is one of the ways it communicates itself to you, not through thoughts you need to hold onto, but through the simple, somatic fact of what feels right, what allows the descent into genuine rest. You are descending now. You can feel it, perhaps, in the heaviness of your eyelids, in the way the thoughts are becoming less sequential and more associative, in the slight loosening of the boundary between waking and sleeping that is the characteristic feeling of the approach of genuine rest. This is the threshold. Not a sharp edge, but a gradient, a slow softening of the membrane between the active and the resting state. The seed does not pass through a door. It drifts across a threshold that has no exact location, moving from dormancy into germination through a process of gradual chemical change. And you are moving now through the same kind of gradient, from the waking state into the resting state, through the gradual quieting of the systems that keep you alert and monitoring and responsive. Let the quieting continue. There is nothing to alert to. There is nothing to monitor. The only thing that is happening is rest, and rest does not require your supervision. In the great forests of the world, particularly in the boreal forests of the north that circle the planet in a band of spruce and fir and pine, the seeds fall in their billions every autumn, descending through cold air to land on the forest floor where the needles have been accumulating for decades. These seeds do not immediately sink into the soil. Many of them rest on the surface, held by the rough texture of the needle bed, exposed to the elements, visible to birds and rodents who will eat many of them, protected by nothing but their hard coats and the statistical advantage of their numbers. And yet enough of them survive, enough of them endure the winter of exposure and the predation of hungry animals to find their way eventually to the soil below, to the conditions of darkness and moisture and mineral contact that will hold them safely through the longer dormancy that follows. The seed's journey to the place where it can truly rest is sometimes itself a journey of exposure and risk. And this is true of human rest as well. Getting to genuine rest, allowing yourself to be truly still and truly surrendered to the night, sometimes requires passing through a period of vulnerability, of releasing the vigilance that has kept you upright and organized and moving through the day. There is a moment in the descent towards sleep when the control loosens, when the monitoring stops, when the self that has been managing everything lets go of management. This moment can feel, to an anxious nervous system, like falling. But it is not falling. It is landing. It is the seed finally reaching the soil, the place where the real protection is, where the conditions for genuine rest and restoration are finally, fully present. You have landed. You are in the soil now, in the metaphor that this evening has offered. You are held. The ground is beneath you and around you. The dark is soft. The quiet is real. And the work that only happens in this place, the interior, invisible, essential work of renewal, is already underway. Consider for a moment the extraordinary patience of the Arctic lupin, a flower native to the high latitudes of North America and Siberia, whose seeds have been found in permafrost and successfully germinated after dormancies estimated at 10,000 years or more. 10,000 years. The seeds of a flower that bloomed before the pyramids were built, before writing was invented, before the horse was domesticated, before any of the civilizations whose histories fill our schoolbooks had yet begun, held themselves intact through all of that time, through the slow advance and retreat of glaciers, through climate shifts of a magnitude that reshaped the surface of continents, and remained, when the conditions finally allowed, perfectly capable of beginning, not diminished, not less than they were. Whole. This is not a metaphor for anything you need to become or anything you need to survive. Tonight is just a night, and tomorrow is just a day, and your rest is for hours, not millennia. But the Arctic lupin's example holds something important about the nature of potential, which is that it does not expire simply because time has passed. The readiness that is being built in you right now, through this night's rest, through all the nights of rest you have taken and will take, does not have a sell-by date. The growth that is coming because you are doing this, right now, consistently, giving the interior work the conditions it needs, and it will arrive in its own time with everything that time has allowed it to accumulate still present and still true. As we move now through the deepest hours of this quiet exploration, let the pace of the language itself become a little slower, a little more spacious, with more room between the ideas for the breath to settle and the mind to drift. There is no hurry. There is nowhere to arrive. The exploration has been doing its work, gently and without urgency, and now the most important thing it can do is to become quiet enough for sleep to take over from where words leave off. The root that emerges from a germinating seed reaches downward first. Always downward. Before the first green shoot pushes toward light, before any visible sign of the plant's future is apparent, the root goes into the dark and the deep. It is seeking water and minerals, yes, but it is also anchoring. It is establishing the connection to the ground that will allow everything above ground to reach upward safely. The root goes down so that the shoot can go up. The depth comes before the height. The invisible work of anchoring in the dark comes before the visible work of reaching toward light. The root that emerges from a germinating seed reaches downward first. Always downward. Before the first green shoot pushes toward light, before any visible sign of the plant's future is apparent, the root goes into the dark and the deep. It is seeking water and minerals, yes, but it is also anchoring. It is establishing the connection to the ground that will allow everything above ground to reach upward safely. The root goes down so that the shoot can go up. The depth comes before the height. The invisible work of anchoring in the dark comes before the visible work of reaching toward light. This downward reaching is called geotropism, the orientation of growth in response to gravity, and it is one of the most fundamental behaviors of plant life. The root cells on one side of the growing tip are somehow aware of which direction gravity is pulling, and they elongate more than the cells on the other side, bending the root inevitably downward, toward the center of the earth, toward the dark, toward the place of greatest stability. There is no conscious decision involved. There is no deliberation about whether downward is the right direction. The pull of gravity is real and constant, and the root responds to it completely, growing toward it without resistance, without second-guessing, without any of the ambivalence that the human mind so often brings to the process of going deeper. The root simply follows gravity, and gravity leads it always to exactly the right depth. Sleep is your gravity. The pull of rest is real and constant, and the part of you that knows how to respond to it completely is not the thinking mind, but the body, the nervous system, the ancient biological wisdom that has been managing the alternation of waking and sleeping since long before language existed to name it. You do not need to think your way into sleep. You need to stop resisting the pull of sleep, to let the gravity of the night do what gravity does, to follow it downward into the depth where the anchoring happens, where the stability is built, where the conditions for tomorrow's upward reaching are being established right now in the dark and the quiet and the complete surrender of rest. Your rest is a root going down. It is the invisible, downward work that makes the upward reaching of tomorrow possible. And it is going down right now, quietly and thoroughly, doing exactly what it needs to do, in exactly the way that your nature requires, in the dark and the quiet and the held stillness of this night. Let the last of the thoughts settle now like the last seeds of autumn, settling through cold air toward the ground. Let them come to rest where they land without needing to be examined or arranged or made to make sense. They are seeds. They know where they are going. They will find their way in their own time to the soil where they belong. For now, they only need to fall. You only need to let them. There is a particular quality of silence that exists in a forest at night, different from the silence of an empty room, different from the silence of a city street at 3 in the morning. A forest at night has a living silence, a silence that is inhabited by the breathing of millions of organisms, the slow exhalation of trees releasing the oxygen they have gathered through the day, the near-soundless movement of insects and small creatures that do their work in darkness. It is a silence full of presence, a silence that does not feel empty, but feels, instead, like being completely surrounded by something that is alive and attending and entirely indifferent to your worry. The trees are not concerned about what you have not yet accomplished. The soil beneath them is not measuring your productivity. The seeds lying in that soil in their patient millions are not comparing themselves to the seeds that are already growing. They are simply being what they are in the moment that is theirs, with a completeness and a lack of self-judgment that is perhaps the most restful quality that the natural world has to offer anyone who is willing to pay quiet attention to it. In that forest, somewhere, a mushroom is quietly fruiting in the dark. A beetle is finding its way beneath a piece of bark. A root tip is extending, millimeter by patient millimeter, through a channel in the soil that a worm left behind last season. Life is happening in its 10,000 forms, all at once, all in the dark, none of it requiring your attention or your management or your awareness. The forest does not need to be observed to be real. The processes do not need a witness to proceed. And neither does your rest. The restoration that is happening in you right now does not need your attention directed at it. It does not need you to monitor it or verify it or stay partially awake to make sure it is occurring. It is occurring. It has been occurring since the moment you allowed yourself to stop. And it will continue occurring more deeply and more completely the more fully you release the impulse to check on it and simply let it be. Let yourself rest in that forest for a moment, not with effort, not with visualization that requires your active management, just the soft idea of it, the quality of that living silence settling around you like the soil settles around the seed. Dark, inhabited, breathing, full of patient life. This is the quality of the rest that is available to you right now. This is what sleep, truly entered, feels like from the inside. Not empty, not blank, not a loss, but a living, inhabited, purposeful quiet that is full of the slow and essential and invisible work of life continuing in the dark. The morning will come. It always does. And with it will come the warmth, the light, the conditions that the waiting, resting, deeply and genuinely restored version of you will be ready for in ways that only a good night's rest can provide. The growth will come not because you forced it, but because you trusted the dark long enough for it to do its work. The flowering will come not as a surprise, but as the inevitable expression of all the quiet preparation that is happening right now, in this bed, in this night, in this body and this mind that are doing what they know how to do. You are a seed in good soil. The conditions are right. The darkness is doing its work. And the morning, when it comes, will find you ready. As we reach the end of our journey tonight, you might notice how wide and quietly connected this world has become. From the molecular precision of phytochrome receptors reading the quality of light, to the ancient patience of seeds that waited through millennia without losing anything essential, to the extraordinary, invisible renovation that your own sleeping brain performs each night in the quiet dark. All of these things are woven from the same thread, the thread of life's deep and abiding wisdom about how to wait, how to hold, how to restore, and how to begin. Seeds and sleep and the human need for rest are not separate stories. They are the same story, told in different languages by different forms of life, across every environment the earth has to offer. Now that knowledge can soften. You do not need to remember every detail or name. Let the ideas settle like seeds finding their place in the dark soil of your mind, not needing to be conscious to continue their work, not needing your attention to do what they are going to do. The abscisic acid and the gibberellins, the phytochromes and the regeneration niches, the Arctic lupin and Methuselah and the poppy seeds waiting beneath the field, let them all become simply this. The quiet certainty that rest is wisdom. That stillness is not emptiness. That you, right here in this moment, are doing something as ancient and as real and as essential as anything life has ever done. If you've enjoyed drifting through this gentle journey, you're always welcome to like, subscribe, or leave a quiet thought below. It helps this space reach other curious minds who might be winding down too. And if you happen to still be awake, there will be another video waiting on the screen, ready to carry you a little further into calm and curiosity. But for now, there is nothing else to do. Let your breathing slow. Let your shoulders sink. Allow the day to loosen its grip, knowing you can return to these ideas whenever you wish. Let insight heal you into sleep. Sleep well and good night.